Today, I have the great privilege of introducing our two presenters. First is going to be Theresa Koleck, and second is going to be Koleck and Dreisbach. So to speak a little bit about them, Dr. Theresa Koleck is assistant professor at the University of Pittsburgh School of Nursing. Her program of research is dedicated to mitigating symptoms burden on patients diagnosed with chronic condition using omic-based approaches in informatics and data science techniques, including clinical data mining, natural language processing, and data visualization. Theresa completed her bachelor's in nursing and a Ph.D. at the University of Pittsburgh and a postdoctoral fellowship at Columbia University. As a highly specialized nurse, scientist trained in genomics and biomedical informatics, Dr. Koleck is on the forefront of advancing symptom science for chronic conditions through surgery of symptoms, omics, and informatics. Next, we have Dr. Koleck and Dreisbach. She is an assistant professor in the School of Nursing at the Gorin Institute of Data Science in the University of Rochester. She recently completed her 2-year postdoc at the Data Science Institute at Columbia University. Her research focuses on the use of data science methodologies to make better clinical assessments during pregnancy, to keep birthing people safe by increasing the evidence base for obstetric procedures and clinical decision-making. Koleck received her Ph.D. and Master's in Data Science from the University of Virginia, her Bachelor's in Nursing from Johns Hopkins University, and a Bachelor's of Science from Cornell University. So with all that said, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to them to let you know what they're going to talk about today.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for the kind invitation, the introduction, and the opportunity to highlight work from nurse scientists. On behalf of our entire research team, it is our honor to be presenting on some of the symptom-related work that we've been doing using the All of Us data. We use both the structured data and the survey data, and today we're going to be focusing on predictors of unrelieved symptoms in individuals with chronic conditions, focusing on the All of Us survey symptom data. So with that, let's just dive right in and get started here with some introduction. So in the United States, over half of American adults are diagnosed with a chronic condition, with an increasing prevalence of individuals diagnosed with multiple chronic conditions. American adults living with one or more chronic conditions experience a decrease in health-related quality of life, higher overall health-related costs, and they're at a higher risk of having co-occurring unrelieved symptoms. And that's what we're interested in today, those symptoms related to their chronic conditions and or the treatment of their chronic conditions. You know, assessing symptoms, managing symptoms, mitigating symptoms, they are all key elements of nursing practice. Now, we call these co-occurring symptoms symptom clusters. And these symptom clusters can really have a significant impact on the daily life and the functional status of our patients. So in line with precision medicine, the goal of symptom science is to identify individuals who are at risk for symptom clusters, and then to develop targeted strategies for preventing symptom occurrence and mitigating symptom severity and burden. Now, we know that the symptom experience is highly heterogeneous in our patients, and that our understanding of symptom clusters in patients diagnosed with one or multiple chronic conditions is underdeveloped, especially in individuals with multiple chronic conditions. So it's critical to better understand the susceptibilities to symptom clusters in individuals diagnosed with one or more of these chronic conditions. The All of Us research program offers this unique opportunity to study symptom clusters and predictors of symptoms in individuals diagnosed with multiple chronic conditions. And we really wanted to take advantage of this opportunity and the ability to study, symptoms in individuals with multiple chronic conditions at scale. As probably most of you on the call know, the All of Us research program includes diverse participants, diagnosed with a wide range of conditions, allowing for the investigation of symptom experiences across various wellness, social, environmental, and economic contexts. And what our team believes is that we can leverage the All of Us data to generate new knowledge, to tailor and improve patient symptom management. The purpose of the study that we'll be sharing with you today is to identify symptom phenotypes. And we define a symptom phenotype as the characterization of the subjective symptom experience. So identifying symptom phenotypes of patients diagnosed with one or more common chronic conditions. We specifically looked at cancer, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, heart failure, and or a diagnosis with type 2 diabetes. And we did all this using the All of Us Research Program survey data. Now, there's a little bit of a, need to give you a little bit of information about our results, which Kate is going to go into in detail later on, but we were actually able to identify 4 distinct symptom phenotypes, 1 asymptomatic or mildly symptomatic, and then 3 that were highly symptomatic, each defined by a different symptom or groups of symptoms being highly symptomatic. So after we identified these symptom phenotypes, we wanted to understand the factors that predict membership to the highly symptomatic phenotypes. So we looked at different demographic variables, healthcare access and utilization variables, and health-related variables. And just for context for this audience, because again, many of you are probably familiar with the All of Us data, we completed this analysis prior to the social determinant of health survey being released, and we look forward to exploring the impact of those social determinant of health factors in a similar way in future studies. So at a high level here, we use the researcher workbench to conduct a retrospective cross-sectional analysis using the All of Us Research Program survey data to identify symptom phenotypes of patients diagnosed with those common chronic conditions, and then to identify those demographic, healthcare access and utilization, and health-related factors that predict membership to our symptomatic phenotypes. The selection of the individual symptoms that we investigated as part of this study, fatigue, emotional distress, and pain, was driven by the data availability. And these 3 symptoms, the fatigue, the emotional distress, and the pain, they are the ones that are evaluated using items on the overall health survey. We use the cohort builder within the researcher workbench to identify adult participants diagnosed with cancer. We did exclude skin cancer and in situ cancer, so cancer, heart failure, type 2 diabetes, and COPD based on condition codes. We limited inclusion to participants who had complete responses for all 3 of those symptom-related items on the overall health survey. And this ended up being nearly 46,000 participants. But then we further limited our sample to those who had predictor information, those who answered 1 or more questions on the basic survey, the overall health survey, the healthcare access and utilization survey, because of course we needed that information in order to evaluate predictors of membership to the different symptom phenotypes that we were able to identify. So this ultimately resulted in a sample of just over 14,000 participants. And the Venn diagram that you've been viewing on the slide is displaying the distribution of participants by their chronic condition diagnosis. And you can see that we have a mix of single conditions, 2 conditions, 3 conditions, and some participants who actually had all 4 of the common chronic conditions of interest. So as I indicated previously, we use participant responses to survey questions to generate the symptom phenotypes, and then to analyze those potential predictors to the phenotypes. So we had 3 symptoms: pain, fatigue, and emotional distress. And each had an individual survey question associated with it. So for pain in the past 7 days, how would you rate your average pain? This was a scale from 0, no pain at all, to 10, the worst pain that you can imagine. Fatigue in the past 7 days, how would you rate your fatigue? This was a 5-point Likert scale ranging from none to very severe. And then finally, emotional distress. How often have you been bothered by emotional problems such as feeling anxious, depressed, or irritable? This was another 5-point Likert scale from never to always. Now, so that you're better able to interpret our results when Kate goes over them in a couple slides from now, what you need to know is that we recoded the responses for fatigue and emotional distress onto a numeric 4-point scale, on a numeric scale of 0 to 4, with 4 indicating a worse symptom experience. So in all cases, for all the 3 symptoms, a higher score means that somebody was having a worse symptom experience, reporting a worse symptom experience. And we explored the influence of a number of predictors. So predictors included demographic, healthcare access and utilization, and our health-related variables. For the demographic predictors, we included traditional demographics, age, gender identity, a combined race, ethnicity, race with Hispanic, non-Hispanic, marital status, level of education, insurance status, employment status, annual household income. Healthcare access and utilization variables included foregoing and or delaying medical care, having a usual place for medical care, time since last seen by a healthcare professional. And then we also wanted to include some variables, some predictors that were more related to patient-provider communication. So ease of understanding health information, being treated with respect by the provider, being asked about opinions or beliefs by the provider, how we defined these variables, how we combined specific questions to combine these variables was really informed by the literature. And we'd be happy to have further discussions offline with anyone who was interested in how we defined these variables for our investigation. And then finally, we included 3 questions, variables related to participant general, physical, and mental health.
Importantly, all analyses were performed on the All of Us data release version 4.0 within the secure researcher Workbench platform using R. Within the Workbench, first, we generated descriptive statistics and data visualizations to characterize all of the variables. Because of the substantial number of participants who did not provide responses for the healthcare access and utilization survey, we did compare demographic and health-related variables between participants with and without these data, using specifically a t-test for age and chi-square tests for all other variables. We then performed hierarchical clustering on participant fatigue, emotional distress, and pain scores to create our overall symptom phenotypes. The optimal number of clusters was determined based on visualization of the dendrogram. We calculated the percentage of participants that belonged to a particular symptom phenotype by chronic condition diagnosis. Finally, we used multinomial regression to determine if demographic, healthcare access and utilization, and healthcare-related variables do predict symptom phenotype. From our over 14,000 participants, the average age was 62 years of age, and the sample overall consisted primarily of women, individuals who identify as white, those who are married, highly educated, not employed, but insured. Compared to participants who completed the healthcare access and utilization survey, participants who did not complete this survey were typically younger, were less likely to identify as white, married, being a graduate from college or high school, and employed. Additionally, they would have lower household income and reported poorer health. the time between the earliest recorded condition start date for a participant's earliest recorded condition to the time of response on the symptom survey items was positively skewed, with a mean of about 5.4 years and a median of 3.6 years. 4 phenotypes listed along the top here on this slide, including 1 asymptomatic or mildly symptomatic phenotype, and 3 highly symptomatic, were identified. At the bottom, you can see the labeled symptom characterization based on the visualizations and the histograms for the prevalence of symptoms within that phenotype. The x-axis represents the survey response scale for each item. And Theresa may have already mentioned this, but the higher the value, the more severe the symptom. The mild symptoms phenotype, labeled in green here on your left screen, contains almost 10,000 participants and is characterized by minimal fatigue, infrequent emotional distress, and mild pain. As you can see that the histogram is skewed to the left, closer to the 0 scale. Within the mild symptoms phenotype, only about 7% of participants denied all 3 symptoms. In contrast, the severe symptoms phenotype, labeled here in yellow on your right screen, contains a little over 600 participants and is characterized by moderate to severe pain, severe fatigue, and frequent emotional distress. The severe emotional distress phenotype, here in red, has again about 1,000 participants and is characterized by infrequent emotional distress, no to moderate fatigue, and mild pain. And then finally, the severe pain symptom phenotype, which has about 2,600 participants and is characterized by severe pain, mild to moderate fatigue, and infrequent emotional distress. An important takeaway from this slide here, and actually from the one prior as well, is that the percentage of participants that belong to a severe symptoms phenotype increases with the number of chronic conditions. Approximately 3.9% of participants diagnosed with one condition belong to this phenotype, the severe symptoms phenotype. And it increases up to 8.7% of participants if they're diagnosed with all 4 conditions of interest. Only participants with complete data, which represents about 13,500 participants, were included in our multinomial models assessing the relationship between survey responses and the symptom phenotypes. And in all of the reported results, the mild symptoms phenotype serves as the reference phenotype. And as you can appreciate from Theresa's presentation of the predictors, we have a lot of results and have really taken a lot of time, not only in this presentation, but also in writing our manuscript, to distill them down to highlight the most important ones. First, we'll show the relationship between mental health factors and symptom phenotypes as listed on this slide. Notably, the odds of belonging to any highly symptomatic phenotypes were 3.6 times higher for participants who rated their mental health as poor, and 1.8 times higher for those who report their mental health as fair. Our work reinforces the complex bidirectional relationship between psychological and physical symptoms for individuals with chronic conditions. In the relationship between foregone or delayed medical care and our highly symptomatic phenotypes, we found that the odds of belonging to a highly symptomatic phenotype were greater for participants who had actually foregone or delayed medical care. Having a usual place for Medicare was actually not associated with symptom phenotype membership. However, the odds of belonging to a symptom phenotype was higher for participants who had foregone or delayed medical care. Having more details on the reasons that an individual may delay or forego medical care could help as a place to intervene and remedy barriers to receiving care. On a patient-provider level, we found that being treated with respect by the provider none of the time increases the odds of a patient or a participant belonging to the severe emotional distress phenotype. And it additionally decreases the odds of belonging to the severe symptoms phenotype. Our work provides quantitative evidence that feeling dismissed by a provider can negatively impact physical and emotional symptoms and potentially even the management of an individual's chronic condition. Importantly, in our assessment of patient demographics and symptoms, we found that individuals who identify as Black and having a non-Hispanic ethnicity, a Hispanic ethnicity, or a race or ethnicity, or any other race or ethnicity compared to individuals who identify as white and non-Hispanic, have a higher odds of belonging to the severe pain phenotype. Additionally, the odds of belonging to the severe symptoms or the severe pain phenotypes were generally higher for women, higher for participants who are not employed, and those who report lower annual household incomes. We cannot express enough how we need to move symptom science from this characterization of disparities to start providing potential interventions targeting care needs and patient-provider interaction and communication. Overall, though, there are several limitations to our analysis using the All of Us research program data. First, we focused on 4 common chronic conditions. Generalizability of our findings to other chronic conditions is unknown. Second, because of the Healthcare Access and Utilization Survey, because it's not required for enrollment, there may be differences in participants who actually completed the survey and those who did not, again, potentially impacting the generalizability of our results. In addition, geographic factors such as like urban and rural or proximity to an academic medical center, those factors were not available for participants. Third, the analysis focused on only 3 symptoms evaluated within the All of Us surveys. Given that these 3 symptoms are often clustered with other symptoms such as sleep disturbance, nausea, anxiety, and depression for those with chronic conditions, identified symptom phenotypes may be characterized by additional symptoms, which we didn't measure and were not available within the All of Us data. Likewise, the predictors that we evaluated may be associated with, again, additional symptoms that were not measured. The objective of this study was to understand the factors that contribute to unrelieved symptoms in All of Us participants diagnosed with one or more common chronic conditions. We report relationships between demographic, healthcare access and utilization, and health-related factors across our 4 symptom phenotypes. We were able to identify meaningful relationships between mental health, foregone and delayed medical care, patient-provider interaction, and race and ethnicity with symptomatic phenotypes using our symptoms of pain, fatigue, and emotional distress. The All of Us research program data offers a unique opportunity to study symptoms in individuals diagnosed with one or more chronic conditions, which helps us to inform targeted interventions to hopefully mitigate symptom burden. We are particularly excited for the inclusion of social determinant data and genomic data to provide additional avenues for evaluation, as Theresa already mentioned.
So as we wrap up here, we wanted to share our experience with the All of Us Resource Access Board because we thought it might be of interest, to many of the attendees attending the presentation. So while our study did not center on underrepresented populations, we clearly did have some findings related to our symptom phenotypes and race and ethnicity. And we wanted to ensure that our results, our discussion were really presented in a sensitive way that would prevent against misinterpretation and potential harm, to any racial and ethnic groups. So we ended up reaching out to the general All of Us help desk, inquiring about the potential for a pre-publication review, at least related to these areas that we had some concerns about, wanting to be interpreted in the proper way. And we were soon connected with the Resource Access Board. And while the Resource Access Board in no way requires a pre-publication review, or I don't think even desires to have this to be part of their typical workflow. They provided us tremendous feedback on how to thoughtfully present our results and our discussion, related to these symptom phenotype findings and race and ethnicity. And we just wanted to thank them for their feedback. David, Shubha, Danielle, their entire team, their feedback was extremely helpful and insightful. And we really think that's one of the reasons why our eventual manuscript, so smoothly moved through peer review with the Journal of Pain and Symptom Management. We'd also like to take a moment to thank the All of Us research program participants. Without them, none of this would be possible. The National Institute of Nursing Research for funding our effort related to this analysis, and for all of you for joining us at office hours today, to hear about this symptom-related work. Our full article on what we just spoke on is actually available early access in a preprint. Just became available last week through the Journal of Pain and Symptom Management. So if you're interested in that, please check out the citation on the bottom of the slide here. And now we'd be delighted to entertain, answer any questions and take any comments from the audience. So thank you very much.